There's nothing more special than receiving a beautiful handmade card at Christmas, and in this series I'm going to show you 5 Christmas cards that you can make really quickly that look absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love a little bit of mixed media, so in this episode I'm going to show you how to make this fantastic tree using our liquid watercolours. If you don't have liquid watercolours, you can use any watercolour paint that you've got at home, and then we're going to add some gems for that extra little festive sparkly touch. So what you need to start with is a little half-fold card, and I've got that ready. This is a 6x4, so it's just a small one. You can do this on any side, the size of card doesn't matter, any size you like. I'm just going with small. So I've got a 6x4 card, and then I've got a piece of watercolour card cut 1/4 inch smaller. You can see that there. So if this is 6x4, 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 in size for your little bit of watercolour card. Then what you're going to do is take some of our repositionable or masking tape. You want to stop the watercolour going where you don't want it and keep it where you do want it. And we're just going to approximate a triangle in the centre of the card. So there's the first piece. Put my glasses on. Here's the second piece. And you want it to overlap. Don't leave any gaps where the watercolour could run out. So you want to be able to make sure that you can keep the watercolour just where you want it, and you want the tape to overlap. And then we want the same down here. So you want a nice, good sized piece, and then make sure it overlaps the previous 2 pieces to create the triangle for your tree. Once you've done that, we get painting straight away. So you're going to use a paintbrush, which is, for this particular effect, a flat paintbrush. You can use a really big one if you're confident, but if you're just starting out for the first time, go with a medium-sized flat brush like this. And if it's brand new like mine, straight out of the box, just give the bristles a little bit of a massage, and then it's ready to receive the watercolour paint. Okay, so the brush is ready. You might also need a little bit of water, so have some water just in case, and never approach a watercolour project unless you've got kitchen towel ready to mop up any mishap that might happen. You're going to be great, there isn't going to be any mishaps, but always have it at hand just in case you need it. Our liquid watercolours are absolutely fantastic. They come in a box of 6 colours, and the dye in here is so deep and so rich that you need the tiniest amount. So what I'm going to be using is my media mat here, which is incredible because I've got all of these little wells. If you don't have this, just get yourself some little plastic cups or little egg cups, something like that, to keep your colours separate, and pop a little bit, or a ramekin, something that you've got at home that you can use, and just pop your little bits of colour into separate receptacles. So I'm using 4 of the colours in that set, and the 4 colours I'm using are catkin green, seaweed aqua, night blue, and clematis violet. And I'm going to start with the colour that I'm using at the bottom of the tree, which is clematis violet, night blue, seaweed aqua, catkin green. So we're going to put a little bit of that into the well. I use my mat, you use whatever you've got, whatever you've decided to use at home. The great thing about these liquid watercolours is they come with a pipette in the lid, so that you're not having to try and pour it out or get as much as you need. You can be really in control with the amount of colour that you're using, and you need only the smallest amount. The thing is as well, start off small, because if you do need some more, you can add a little bit more in. But if you put too much in, when it comes to clean up, you're going to waste it, and you don't want to do that. So then we're going with the nice. And then seaweed aqua. And you'll see here, these all in fact look black, don't they? The colours on them. it's difficult to actually see the colour, and that's because the dye is so rich and deep that you won't actually see the colour until we start to apply it to the card, but it looks incredible. And then the final colour is catkin green. I've got that there. Okay, I think that'll be more than enough, but we can always add a little bit more if we need. Now, start with a damp brush, because if you don't have a damp brush, then the colour won't move freely. So it's not soaking, it shouldn't be dripping. It goes into the water and gets a nice saturate, and then that goes straight to your paper towel to take off the excess water. What we're also going to do is prime our piece of watercolour card ready to receive the liquid watercolour, and that means we're going to moisten it. So we're just going to paint some water over the triangle there, and that primes it, which simply means it's ready now to receive colour. So again, just in with your brush, damp off the excess on your towel. So you've got a damp brush, take a little bit of the colour, look how intense that is, and then just drag that across the card. Once you've got that colour on and you're happy with the intensity of it, then you can clean your brush. So just into your water, good fizz around, and then dab onto the towel just to get off any of that excess dye that's on there. It will dye the bristles on your brush, but if I show you here on this paper towel now, that's beautifully clean and none of that purple is coming off. So it will dye them, can't do anything about that, please don't worry. So we're going with a damp brush again and into the next colour, which was our night blue, I think. I picked up a little bit of the night blue, and then I go over where the clematis violet was, and then up a little bit, clean my brush, dab off the excess, and then just blend those two together by going over the join line between the two, and that gets me that lovely smooth join between the two. Clean your brush again, dab off, make sure it's nice and clean, and we repeat. So dab a damp brush, not a wet brush, pick up a tiny bit of the colour that you're going to use, and this one now is the Seaweed Aqua. Exactly the same again, you go over the initial line of blue and then bring some of the aqua colour up itself, clean your brush, dab it off, go over the join, clean your brush, pick up the next colour, which is going to be our catkin green, exactly the same again, over the join, all the way up, clean your brush, dab it off, over the join. And the absolute joy of this is every time you do this, it will be different. Every single tree you do will never look the same, and that really does make it feel like a one-off piece of artwork that you are creating for your recipient. So we're going to need to let this dry. Now you can either leave it to dry naturally, and if you're doing 10, 15, 20 of these, you've seen how quick it is, do it, put it to one side, let it dry. Or if you're doing one at a time and you want to, and you've got a gadget like mine, then you can force dry it. So you're going to use your heat tool and just take most of the moisture out. And for this, actually, if you haven't got a heat tool and you want to use your hairdryer, it's not going to hurt. A heat tool, that wouldn't work if you're doing heat embossing and things like that, but just to take the moisture out of it, you don't have to have that fancy tool if you don't want to invest in it. And then what we do now is take off our masking tape. We start at the side, because it crossed over at the end, you know I said make sure it crosses over, it should allow us to bring this off in one piece really cleanly. Just take your time, don't rip it off like a band-aid, and just keep pulling. And by doing that, you don't get any of the paint where you don't want it. What you're left with is a beautifully clean triangle for your Christmas tree. And then we go with whatever colour we want to paint the trunk, and I'm going to go with the catkin green. There we go. And then we're going to dry it again. You can, again, when you're doing these yourself, you can just leave this to dry naturally and come back to it later, because I need to show you the next bit. I'm going to force it dry. Okay, and once it's dry, just flatten your cardstock, because when it's had water on it, it will want to curl. That's natural, so just give it a little bit of encouragement. Then you're going to take a felt tipped fine line marker. You can use a biro, it's just a pen. It's entirely up to you. And all we're going to do is trace a line for where our sparkles are going to be on our tree. And again, this is easiest to do without thinking about it too much. So just start in one place, do a line, and then next line down. And everyone will be different, so don't worry about it. Next line down, and then do I want another line to there. And that one is very different to this one, but it doesn't matter, because every single one will be a unique piece of artwork for the person that you're sending it to, which is the most important thing. So I've got my gems out of my gem. Can I advise everybody to get these for Christmas cards? I'm using them all the time. So we've got the gem box again, and I've just put some little gems out of the gem box onto the plate, so it's easy for me to pick them up. That's a good thing if you're working at speed for you to do as well. And then you want your fine tip glue, and I've got one of these little applicators. If you don't have this, a little bit of glue out onto a mat somewhere, and use a cocktail stick will help you. And then all you're going to do is dots of glue onto the line you've just created. And once you've done that, we start with our gems. You'll see what I'm doing is alternating between two sizes, a larger one and a smaller one. There we go. And once you've done that, we can then put a little gold star on the top. So I'm going to use our metallic paint markers because they're fabulous. And I'm going to use the fine tip one, which is the 7mm. So once you've done your little star on the top with your gold marker, what you can then do is pop yourself a little sentiment on the bottom, which I've done using our Christmas Dream collection. And then you have got the most beautiful hand-coloured, hand-drawn, watercolour, personal Christmas card for a friend or a loved one.